question, you're going to jerk yourself off raw.
I thought you were asking.
No, I just asked a question about sciatica and you got it wrong. I mean, why should I keep asking you questions that you don't know? Because you're obviously not a big William Montgomery fan.
I mean, I asked you a two-parter.
I did too. What was the injury and what caused it? And you knew the answer to neither.
Calm down.
Well, you're just rocking with the best. You're with the best. I mean, you're over here asking me questions about a fucking check number that he got from his previous employer. I remember that he got back pay, and you're like not giving me credit for that. I know that his fucking dog's name's Gator. You say it's Gator Montgomery. Like, dog, what the fuck?
What does William Montgomery podcast enjoy to do during his spare time?
And finds itself, nestles itself in your backyard for prolonged amounts of time. It just could happen. It could happen, right? So
You want to lock that in? Silent? We can lock it silent.
Was this? But this is actually a really good question. Truthfully, was this a quiz about William Montgomery or William Montgomery's podcast producer? Because I don't know shit about that motherfucker. I know about William Montgomery. So give me a question about William Montgomery, son.
It is a question about William Montgomery. You really care about William Montgomery. You would know his producer's favorite actor.
I mean, I think you answered the question yourself. You're obsessed with William Montgomery's podcast producer, and I don't give a flying fuck about that person. I care about William Montgomery. No, that wasn't a William Montgomery question. That was about William Montgomery's podcast producer, and that is a different question. And it's a different topic. I'm not here to debate William Montgomery's podcast producer questions. You can know all you want about that motherfucker. Nobody cares about that person. They care about William Montgomery. Do you not understand?
Let me see if I can think of one.
It's my money. It's my money. I worked for it. I worked very hard for it. I earned it. Why should I give it away? You have to have emotional patronus.
William Montgomery pulled out what sort of item in the parking lot around 2 years ago.
Well, a lot of them. He called that his car keys at one point.
If that's the kind of person you are for others,
Okay, which
I'll be there for you as well.
boxy item pull out
Back to straight up.
Which boxy item?
Yeah.
Did he pull out of his? Did he pull out? You said which boxy item did William Montgomery pull out of a parking lot?
He'll be burned by fire straight up.
Did he like assemble in a parking lot?
Now, the Karshtos, what the tourist telling me over here is, once you're married to Rothschild, right, once you're married to Rothschild, he can't marry Rothschild's mother. And if he does so, it's punishable by Streifa. They're going to say, who's punishable by Streifa? It doesn't, Rothschild didn't do anything, right?
Yeah, because you didn't even make it a full sentence previously. So please do.
So why does it say that
Which item did William Montgomery assemble in a parking lot?
A row.
2 years ago, it was boxy shape. Just a boxy item.
Was it an? Let me just clarify. Was this an exercise machine?
what exactly is the machlokes over here? What's the machlokes over here? Have a dash in the pasuk.
It was a.
Says, right, we say that we go ahead and we put the Ruvain.
Was it a piece of furniture?
No.
Doesn't mean both of them.
Boxy item.
Contraction.
You'll never guess.
A coffin.
I guarantee you'll never guess.
Okay, well, what is it?
It's one of these cardboard boxes that are like a closet. This like a bar that goes across.
I know what you're talking about. It's a temporary closet. Yeah. Okay. Nobody would fucking understand that. Wait. That is a piece of furniture.
The prohibition.
A cardboard boxes are not.
Wait, no. Are you talking about he assembled like a temporary closet?
Yeah, if you want to call it that.
That is a piece of furniture, dog.
It's not furniture.
It absolutely is.
Closets are not furniture.
Dog, get the fuck out of here. What a shitty question. And I got it right. No, ask if temporary closets are considered a piece of furniture. They are. It's like an armoire.
In fact, the mother of prohibition was made even after death led to the point that the relationship is punishable by death. Rabbi Akiva Sabar Yisur Babar. It's only in Isser. I'm going to say only in Isser. It's Asr, but it's not Sreifa. Okay, it looks like that brings to a conclusion our sugya on Sreifa Shkoyach. Says the Mishnah. On to a lighter topic.
Temporary closets, like portable organizers, are usually never considered furniture.
Dog, fuck you. They are.
So,
Are closets and temporary racks considered furniture
temporary
in some conditions?
If it's movable and it's not a fixed item, no one considers that furniture.
Wait, yeah, temporary racks, however, are typically classified as furniture because they are movable, freestanding, and not permanently installed. They include freestanding clothing racks, temporary hanging shelves, or portable closet systems. Yeah, they are. That is furniture. And
Okay, so you're saying you want to document correct? Yes, furniture and not temporary closet that was made of cardboard box.
I'm saying that he has talked about putting multiple things together in a parking lot, and I didn't know if you were referencing when he put together furniture, which is his temporary closet. Okay? And you didn't give me proper guidance on what you were referencing. First, you said this is something that he got out in a parking lot, which isn't even, and I said car keys, which is correct. Okay, shitty question, terrible question asker. All right, how about this? William Montgomery has a hobby that, dude, I could ask so many questions on this, and I'm going to. William Montgomery has a hobby that he likes to do, and he has a strategy that he follows with this hobby. And I'm going to ask you, when he does the hobby, what does it do? So there are a few questions in here. All right, so I recall, he says he found this to be a relaxing hobby. And I'll say it's done indoors on a table. What hobby is it? What is his strategy?
Oh, so I got it right.
I mean, I gave you the answer. What else is he doing?
You didn't give me the answer. You said it's done on teams. There's a million things done on teams.
Yeah, obviously, it's solving puzzles. What is his strategy?
Look at the box.
Incorrect. You want to guess again?
Why? Because one said this is going to be a case of this is causation. Because in these cases over here,
No, I don't know.
He puts like colors together. All right.
Unreal.
Here's another question. He recently discussed a puzzle that he completed. And
Barnyard.
incorrect. And the puzzle that he completed had to do with something you find inside your house. And he named something that you find inside the thing that you find inside your house. Or most people would find this inside their house in the Western world. And it is... I'll just basically give you the answer, but you won't get the next thing. It is an appliance. What was the puzzle? Get the fuck out of here with that toaster bullshit. It was a refrigerator. And what was the puzzle of the refrigerator depicting?
And somehow, and again, under normal circumstances, what would have happened if you threw a pebble at someone?
Surrounding area.
Incorrect. It had the doors of the refrigerator open, and you could see all the food inside. What is one of the foods that was inside that he describes?
So that's I told you use Lashon of Yad by Evan and by Ace. So he mentions why doesn't it use the same Lashon of Yad by Barzal?
Incorrect. It's a type of fruit.
Because again, Barzal is different. Barzal is different.
Pineapple.
That's incorrect. You want to guess again?
When it comes to wood,
That's also incorrect. You want to guess again?
Apple.
That's also incorrect. You want to guess again?
Great.
Incorrect as well. You want to guess again?
Lemon.
That's also incorrect. Would you like to guess again?
Tomato.
Incorrect. And also, botanically considered a fruit, but culinarily considered a vegetable. Not a tomato.
Culinarily?
Yeah, like.
Oh. Okay, what's the answer?
I'll give you another clue because obviously you just keep. Incorrect. Guess again.
I don't know what's my hand.
It's a type of melon.
Cantaloupe.
Incorrect. Guess again.
Water.
That's correct. And how many seeds were shown in the puzzle of the watermelon?
Between 2 and 58.
That's incorrect.
What the fuck? No, it's not.
Oh, it most certainly is, and this was a discussed topic between William Montgomery and none other. It was seedless watermelon, which was discussed on stage with Tony Hinchcliffe, because Tony Hinchcliffe said, "Were you able to recognize the watermelon by the seeds?" And William Montgomery said, "No, because it was seedless watermelon." So I can't even add up how many incorrect answers you gave there. You said toaster, you said blueberries, you missed the amount of seeds. Do you even know who William Montgomery is?
I was just seeing it.
All right. I think we've proven here who the biggest fan of William Montgomery is. And we've also proven that a temporary closet is a piece of furniture.
Now that is most certainly up for both of those points. We can sever this debate on another day. When I actually have not been up for like 48 hours, back to debate.
Look, I could give a shit about William Montgomery. I know I'm a bigger William Montgomery fan than you are. What I want you to start studying is Brendan Shaw.
I studied him. He doesn't even seem that entertaining.
He is.
I mean, like someone said in the comments, he's like the best CTE comedian.
Oh, for sure.
Like I don't know.
Here's the thing. It's not so much like his speech. It's the fact that he just blatantly lies, that he runs scammy, grifty contests, that he cheats on his wife, or used to at least, that he's obsessed with his kids' baseball, not because he loves his kids, but because he wants these kids to be pro players, to the point where he says, I'm keeping track about how much I invest in these kids because when they turn 18, I want them to pay me back when they start making money as pros, essentially along those lines. He
idiotic thing to do.
Oh yeah, but he even said, like on a recent episode, they talked about some pro player who paid off their parents' house when they went pro, and Brendan Shaw was like, "That's the least you can do. That's the least you can do." I tell my kids, I'm gonna sneeze one
The
more.
lights on for this
Basically, that they don't know how much I do for them. My kid was going to school the other day, and I was dropping him off, and I said to him, now his kid's name is Tiger, like that's his real name. He says, Tiger, I am gonna ask you, do your friends' dads make them protein shakes? He is 9. He doesn't need fucking protein shakes. Okay? No. Do they pitch batting practice with them? No. And when I'm gone, meaning when I die, you're going to remember all of this and all of these times. And he said that he did it so that his kid would cry before he went into school. Not only that, he flipped out on his son. He's like, he always talks about this. He says, when my kids are playing a game, I always make sure to remember that, like, no criticism to any child has ever, like, helped the kid, meaning, like, trying to give them advice while they're not doing well, just to let them work through it. But I didn't do it in this one case, and I cussed in front of the entire team. I said the F word, and I had to apologize to all the other coaches and all the other players. These kids are 9. There's no reason why you should be saying the F word in front of them. Like, the mom yells that shit, yells SHIT in front of 9-year-old kids. Like, that's not a good example.
No, I saw somehow footage of them being kicked out.
Yeah, exactly, because the parents of that league hated him so much that they downloaded the video from the website that has it and then uploaded it because they wanted the world to see. You were like, is there anything redeeming about him? Yeah. So remember I said they had this designer baby? She has some issues. Like they didn't know exactly what it was. Um, when she was a little baby, or like normally children walk anywhere between like 6 months and a year and a half. It just depends on their development. But their kid was not. They didn't know why. And this is a sad thing. Like I think it was something like this. I could be wrong, but uh, Joe Rogan was having a fight companion or something. No, it wasn't. It was something like that. And like the boys were basically gonna be in a hot tub. The guys, like their friends, and it was the night that his wife went into labor, and he wasn't there for the birth, or he came late or something because he was hanging out with the boys, and the wife, like basically the baby didn't get enough oxygen, and she has a condition called, I think it's called like hypertomia or hypotomia, something like that. But basically this baby doesn't walk the way that it should be, and she needs braces on her legs. And Brendan really showed concern, and he was working with this kid in the pool and stuff. But usually he's only focused on the boys. He doesn't really care about the girl. But the fact that she's not walking, he was really sad about it. But on January 2nd, this was really cool. The child took her first steps, and even though it's like really delayed, she's like starting to walk, and it's really beautiful. So, is there anything redeeming about him? Yeah, we want everybody. Those 200,000 people in that community want to see that kid walk. Nobody rips on the kids for being like, everybody's really positive about the kids. They're just like, dude, your parents are absolute garbage. But we want those kids, and I'll, as a spokesperson for the homeless cats, we want those kids to be successful in spite of what their parents put them through.
So according to the only time you're hired for damages.
That's good. I guess.
Yeah, I'll speak on behalf of the community. All right. Do you want any more William Montgomery trivia?
Did you look at the Epstein bullshit?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. It's terrible. It's disgusting. There's nothing more disappointing.
Did you see like how the Melania documentary got like really terrible reviews?
Yeah, going back to Brendan Schaub, it's tied with Brendan Schaub's special as the worst thing on IMDb. It has a 1.1. And so does his special Gringo Poppy. Dude, it's all political hate. And especially it came out like the same weekend as that other shit. Absolutely. There's a topic on the Fighter and the Kids subreddit that said like, dude, your special that you put stuff into that's 24 minutes long, it got a 1.1. It's the lowest rated comedy special in the history of IMDb. And this woman's documentary that basically has half the country absolutely can't stand her just because of who her husband is, and the other people basically don't think it's good. But it's very her results are very skewed. Has the same score as your comedy special. Dude, we should just watch his comedy special one of these days so you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's only 24 minutes long. Like, it's literally dude, let's just watch it. I'll watch it with you right now. It's 24 minutes long. It's not that long.
I'm watching outside right now.
Doug, I mean, is that my...
Also, I can tell... Well, what did you talk about during the special? Can you just reenact that?
Dude, extremely well. So he says, I can almost do it word for word. He says, something like he first welcomes, he does it in Dallas. And he's like, a lot of ladies out here tonight. Dicey. Usually my audience is like 18 to 35-year-old dudes. And then he goes into he talks about like I don't remember everything, but like he talks a lot about uh Mexicans and like his wife, who is he says is illegal. Said that uh she's from Guadalajara, and like that he was like on a ketogenic diet, and that he was trying, like, what does ketogenic mean? It means that you can't eat Mexican food, and he says the foods that like they make are like carne asada, but he doesn't fucking pronounce it. He like tries to sound Spanish, and like huevos rancheros, and like something else, a couple other things, and then like he'll be like his wife said that it was during the pandemic, and like the neighbors moved in or something, and like it would be nice if she made them some like Mexican cookies, and he's like, oh, what are Mexican cookies? Like chocolate chip with salsa on top? Like that's just like a really weak joke. And then he talks about, you laughed at it. And then he talks about like there, like his big finish is something like it was when he lived in, dude, you fucking love this guy. It was when he lived in he was living in Calabasas, and there was like a mountain lion that was spotted, and he talks about like he was gonna hunt this mountain lion because somebody saw it on a Ring camera, and he got like night vision goggles at the store, and like a gun with like a laser on it, and just trying to hunt down this cat. And like basically his wife was like, are you gonna be able to get it? And then he went, and he's like, he goes outside to go try to find it, and then he realizes that like it's a mountain lion, like it's a lion of the mountains, and then pushes out, and then runs back into his house, and like just is like, oh, I guess we live in its fucking territory. And then at the end he's like, that's my time, Dallas. I mean, that's like, it's 24 minutes long. It's not that long, and I just did like.
Do you think I do like an hour long version?
That's exactly what happened, because we have other people who were there who said it was originally like an hour and 6 minutes, but it wasn't funny. And so they took the best 24 minutes of it, which includes like a startup song. The startup song goes, thick boy squad, thick boy nation, thick boy squad, thick boy nation, thick boy squad, thick boy nation. And I mean, there's only like 24 minutes of comedy in it. And the background, they like made the background. It's like this, it's made out of like construction paper. Steve-O talks about it. Steve-O's like, I know where they even bought the construction paper. And in this interview, and Tony Hinchcliffe is like, what's this now? He's like, I'm obsessed with it. Like, I found out everything that he did. It was at the Dallas Improv. Like, basically, Steve-O said, like, I got obsessed with it. Like, and he's not the only one. There are people who, like I said, they spent 24 hours watching the special, and I watch them like at least once a week. Watch the special, and they just have it playing in the background for like 24 hours. And well, they only put out 12 hours of it, and the rest is on their Patreon. But at least I watched like this thing 12 hours, and then they interview people who were there, and then they interview some like bigger time UFC people to ask them about their opinion on it. But like, it's become like a cult classic. And if you watch it, is it the worst comedy special ever? No, it's like might have a joke or two that aren't that bad. But he, like, what's a joke that he says? This is the best joke that everybody says. He says, "Oh, they talk about the pandemic and how everybody in LA went on lockdown, and LA became North Korea with a beach, and that's like his big joke." And in a lot of ways, I mean, I don't know what North Korea is like, but during pandemic, LA was like pretty strict on stuff. Though I don't know how it was in comparison to Canada. But.
Has he been? How long did he doing comedy before that?
So he says he was doing it for 4 years before he did his first special, but it was really probably only 2 years. But that was a big special. That was on Showtime, but it bombed. It was like Showtime's biggest comedy bomb ever. 1.7 1.7 ranking. And then this is another thing that he did. Since it was really, really bad, he had this like CBD company he was working with, and he texts the guy to the CBD company. And this has all come out because the CBD company ended up suing Brendan Schaub over some shadiness that he did. But basically, he texts the CEO of the CBD company, and he says, "Look, my Showtime special has really bad reviews. Is there any way we can use like the customer list of the CBD company to say like, hey, you can get 50% off if you can get 50% off your next order of CBD if you give a positive review of you may be or you'd be surprised, which is the name of his special." So they're like, "Yeah, let's put something together. We can do that." So then they put out like a mass email to their customer base that says, "Hey, if you give this comedy special 5 stars or whatever, or 10 stars, like rank it at a 10, you get 50% off your next order of CBD." But then Showtime found out he was doing this and called Brendan Schaub and was like, "Hey, you cannot do this, and I am like, you can't manipulate the numbers." We had people with like when Amy Schumer put her special out, and somebody else put out their special. The numbers were like messed with, and you're not allowed to do that. And so Brendan Schaub had to go back to the CEO of this company and be like, "Oh yeah, Showtime called me and said we're not allowed to do that. So can you please just like take down that email?" It's like, "No, we already sent it out." So it's like, well, okay, take down that promotion. But then a lot of people in the reviews put like, "Dude, I'm only here because I was told I would get 50% off my CBD order. So I'm ranking this like a 10, but I've never even seen it," or like whatever it is. It's like, so then a few years go by, actually more than that, like a decade goes by, and that CBD company ends up suing Brendan Schaub because Brendan was supposed to do like a bunch of posts for them on his Instagram and never did, and it was a breach of contract basically. And now they're in some kind of legal case, and they served him. They tried to serve him at his house in Austin, but he wasn't there. He was at a pizza joint like down the street or whatever. So he said, "Just serve me here at this pizza joint where he was." So then there's that lawsuit that's going on. So he's got at least 2 lawsuits going on. He's got the one he's suing the small YouTuber. He's got that appeal, and then he's got the CBD lawsuit, and that's all we know about. But that's more than a person would want. Like he talks about, you were like, what other jokes does he do? He talks about he wouldn't be able to go through another pandemic or another lockdown because he can't stand being around his family. He says that his wife is like he before he married his wife, like his friend was like, "You got to get with a Latina, man. They're spicy." And then he's like, "Yeah, you know what spicy means? It means they're assholes." Like he's calling his wife an asshole in his stand-up, and he can't stand being around his kids during the lockdown. But like, which I understand, but then don't be like, "Oh, I'm the ultimate family man." I don't know. I just talked about this fucking special for half the time of the actual special, which you could have just watched.
That's true.
But you do. Next time you come, we got to watch the special, dude. We'd watch both the specials. They're absolute dog. Oh, dog, I can't even put into words. I think I'm like.
I don't feel like he like that word obsessed.
My man,
Like,
you don't know the lore. Did you hear Shane Gillis talking about him and how hilarious it is? And Ari Shafir, it's absolutely fucking hilarious. When you get into the lore,
Does he ever address this? Does he ever address like swath of people like basically mocking him 24/7?
yes, he calls them homeless cats. He says their opinion doesn't matter. It's like they're homeless people. It would be as if it was a cat having a negative impression of him. That's where the term homeless cats comes from.
Okay.
Puts a barrel over this much very reminiscent, very reminiscent.
And I would say this. I could really give a shit about his life. It's the fact that this subreddit exists that just, pardon me, shits on him for being friends with pedophiles and rapists. That's ridiculous. Like, if he was smart, he would have cut ties with the bad people. But he's like so and ostracized within the. I mean, what should he really do? He should really go get a job. But he refuses to do that. So he does a podcast thing and he does these like scams of people. And it's just hilarious that this guy thinks
Does he still do stand-up?
No, he couldn't sell out. He used to do stand-up, and when he would be on the road, he would cheat on his wife. And basically, he got caught publicly cheating on his wife. So then he, and the other issue is he couldn't sell out anywhere. And they actually do an interview of him talking about he was in Oklahoma, and he's got this huge theater in Oklahoma, and it's like 3,000 people, and it shows on the website sold out. So he thinks he's making a lot of money. So it's a little before the show, and he goes to the show promoter. The show promoter comes to him actually, and he's like, "Okay, so I'm gonna get going, but I'm gonna give you your check for the show." And Brendan Schaub's like, "Okay, great." And he gives him the check, and Brendan's like, "It's really small. It says that it's sold out on the website. Why is it so small?" And the show promoter's like, "Yeah, we had to say that so that we could comp tickets to people because nobody knows who you are. They may know who you are in Los Angeles or New York, but nobody in Oklahoma knows who you are. And you have to understand, we had to get the ball moving on these tickets because nobody was showing up. You sold like 18 tickets or something for like 3 out of 3,000 seats. And so you have to understand there are two things working against you. One, it was an Oklahoma Sooners football game that weekend, and two, there was like a tornado or something, like warning or something. So like he was supposed to do the show. He was supposed to do the show in front of like a packed house of 3,000 people, but nobody showed up. Only like 12 people showed up, and so he asked if the 12 people would go back to the green room and he could just perform in front of the green room, which nobody would do. And they're like, "No, just go out there. You can go out there and give them a hell of a show." That's what the guy said. He said, "Look, and if you do a good job, maybe a few years go by and we can have you back." Like trying to give him some positivity about this. But basically, he was going around to different cities. They start with the tickets that, like, for a normal comedian might be like $100, and none of those sell out. And then they get down to where it's two tickets for $5, or it's just a free show. You can come to the show for free, which no comedian wants to have happen. The only thing is, it's like a 2-drink minimum. And he was getting to the point.
People love your free show, but yeah, his material is garbage.
Yeah, it was getting to the point where his he wasn't selling out anymore, and nobody really wanted him. And not only that, but then he found the Temptations on the Road to be really big because he was cheating on his wife when he was there, and that's not good either. And for as bad a comedian as he is, this is what he's failed at, and this is just what I know. Okay, so he failed. I don't want to say he failed as a football player. He did play Division I football, but what he failed at is saying that he's an NFL veteran. Like he never made an NFL roster. He never even made a practice squad. He says he had a cup of coffee with the Bills, but that's not playing in the NFL. The Bills have open tryouts where you could try out, I could try out, but that's not making the team. But he says that he played that as a professional sport, which is kind of a failure. Okay, UFC, he was
had a bunch of famous people on the podcast.
totally.
Whoever
He absolutely has. He had the UFC. He was on the UFC's Ultimate Fighter, and he at one time was ranked usually probably in the top 15 of UFC. Some people say the top 10 in the heavyweight, which is good. He went 10-5, and he got his shit tossed in his last 5 fights. I think he lost, or something close. Maybe not the last 5, but he lost 5 fights total, but he lost his last two fights or something. And then Joe Rogan has a heart-to-heart with him and says, "Look, you're a funny guy, but you're gonna do a lot of brain damage to yourself if you continue to fight." And that's where he says, if you go and fight this one guy, how do you think you do? And then Brendan Schaub says, "I think you'd be surprised." And Joe Rogan says, "I think you'd be surprised." And it was the number one. And then when he retired from UFC, it was the number one Joe Rogan podcast up until the Elon Musk that he did in like 2018. So it was a really big podcast. All right. So here are his business ventures at which he's failed. He did something called, he's had a ton of podcasts. So he did the King and the Sting, which then became the King and the Sting and the Wing, which then became the Golden Hour, which is still going, but it's not popular. Okay, then he did something called Food Truck Diaries, where he would have fighters come to him, and like they'd go to a food truck and they talk about fighting. That failed. He did he was on Showtime, and he was on E, and he would do like red carpet stuff, and he got his contract wasn't renewed, or he got fired from that because he was making fun of the celebrities like on camera, which you're not allowed to do. The celebrities like come out with like kind of outrageous clothing. You can't go out and say like, this guy looks like a doofus. Like, you're not allowed to do that. So he lost his gig with E. He lost his gig with Showtime. Then he did he did have a show on Showtime that got canceled as well. Then he came out with his own whiskey known as Tiger Thick Whiskey. That failed. It went from being $100 a bottle to like $70 a bottle to $60 a bottle to $30 a bottle, and then he sold the company, he said, and that's no longer a thing. Then he had something called Tiger Thick Boy Productions, where he wanted to be a music producer, and nobody wanted to sign with him. And so he didn't. They put out like a few songs. Nothing really came of it. Then he put out it's called Thick Boy Bicycle Club, which was he wanted to get into bicycling, like 2-wheel bicycles. And so he was going to do a bicycle run from San Francisco to LA, and he quit like 1/5 of the way and just gave up. And so like he just stopped doing bicycles. He did what else did he do? He's done like another 5 things. So then he had Drive Fast All Gas, which is anti-electric thing that hasn't posted in 10 months, and nobody really does anything with that. It's like that's just his thing. What else did he do that failed? I mean, you can't hate on him for taking risks and trying, but it's like he's just not really good at anything. Um, he did. What he did something recently that didn't do well. I forget what it was, but he has this. Oh, I know what it was. He has it's called Gearheads Gone Wild, which is his next thing that he wants to do, which is like a play on the Girls Gone Wild thing. But as of right now, he only has an Instagram for it and a T-shirt. Anything else? Yeah, he has one called what is it? Abbott Kenny Fight Club, which is Abbott Kenny is like a really nice area of Venice, California, which is it's the main street, and it's like how would I describe it? It's like very foodsy, like very very hipster, and they thought it like the opposite of that would be like a fight club. So calling it Abbott Kenny Fight Club would be like really good, but they never started an Abbott Kenny Fight Club. But it's a bunch of t-shirts.
Amazing, I guess.
That's exactly right. I mean, you get the point. Like everything he does, he basically tries to have the next big idea, and he doesn't see it through, and he gives up on it, and it isn't very successful. So then his newest thing is Drive Fast All Gas, and even Joe Rogan can't get the name of it correct, and it hasn't posted in 10 months, but yet he still puts out car content. But it's not even like, hey, we're gonna change the oil on this car today. It's like, hey, I'm gonna get my car modded. He drops it off, and then right before it's done, he'll take out 2 bolts and be like, all right, I helped. And it's like, dude. No, that one, Doug, that one, nobody does undercar work, but doesn't have like one of those rollers, and also doesn't have like a headlamp. Like he's doing it on a clean floor. It's not like what you would normally where you do mechanical stuff. It's just not how it's done. He doesn't know what he's doing. So I think people have headed it up. In the UFC, he made something like $400,000 or something, and then when he would tour as a comedian, he would make just short of $1 million. But there were a lot of expenses with that. And then with The Fighter and the Kid, he makes something like maybe $400,000 or $500,000 from that. He's got expenses to that though, but that's with already paying Brian Callen. He pays Chin, his producer, $100,000 a year, and then he I hate that I know all this about him. And then he has his own show, which does maybe another $200,000, $300,000. And then he has the Golden Hour, which does maybe another $200,000, something like that. And so all in all, he might be making $1 million a year, but there's a lot of overhead in that. $300,000 of that goes to Brian Callen. Another $100,000 of that goes to his producer. And then he's got to pay D'Elia and Eric Griffin, so maybe they're getting $100,000 or $200,000 each or so. I mean, it's not exactly. And then, yeah, so each one of those ad reads that they do is like $5,000. Total scam. If you ever watch, they absolutely, yeah, and the advertising companies that they're connected with were scams previously, and they went out of business, and then they were acquired by other companies, and now they're running on the other companies that acquired the previous scam companies. It's like the whole thing's a scam. If you ever watch, he posts a video, it starts out with like 7 views, and then all of a sudden goes up to 25,000 views, and then goes up to 40,000 views and stops. All his videos have 40,000 views on. Like they all, and they used to get like 1 million views. They used to get a lot of views, and they just, his channels show no growth. I mean, it's just it's not. Oh, so what else did he do that was recent? Like this summer, he got into boating for a little while. He's gotten into hunting. He got into archery. That's all been in the last year. But he literally went, and as an archery person, they're like, you're such a natural. You're like, usually it takes us like 50 arrows to teach somebody how to shoot, and you're able to do it in like 5. And so he buys all this stuff for archery, and then puts a target in his backyard and never uses it. His neighbors were like, hey, you say you want to go hunting, we're gonna go hunting this weekend, or like it was like on a Monday afternoon, you should come with us. So he's like, okay, well, what do I wear? Do I wear my like Jordans? They're like, no, you wear like boots, and like you already wear camo shit, just wear that. And he's like, okay. And so they go, and it's like basically it's not like normal hunting where it's like the animal has a chance. It's like they put a fence up around the property, and so the animal's basically trapped. And then there was a deer, and not just any deer. It was like an albino female deer, like the least intimidating deer that you could find. And they're like, yeah, that's the one. So he killed a white.
Boasting like he's like out in the wild.
I mean, he was like, normally you get, well, he wouldn't post it because he didn't want any of the backlash of people being like, dude, you killed Bambi's mom. And not just Bambi's mom, but like an albino Bambi's mom. It's like literally white against like like a forested background. Like how, and not only that, there's like a huge fence around. Like, I mean, they talk about like wanting to go hunting from helicopters and shooting wild boar. Like that's not real hunting. I mean, that's like slaughtering of animals, basically. And then but you don't want this guy doing that job. And then on top of all of that, one of the people they have on who is a like one of the fill-in hosts when Brian Callen's unavailable is this guy named Tim Kennedy. And Tim Kennedy has been accused by the United States government of stolen valor. So Tim Kennedy was like a Green Beret. Like he was like, that's like a really high, really special force in the U.S. Army. But Tim Kennedy wasn't satisfied with just being a Green Beret. He wrote this book where he talks about killing kids and killing people in like Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff, and how badass he is. And he also talks about being like a Bronze Star with like, it's called like a V device or something, like where it's like a higher level, but it turned out he did not have that, and he just let it go, and he lied about his service, basically. And so there are podcasts like military podcasts that go out and spend 4 hours just like reading everything in this guy's book and tearing it down and saying how it's not true. So basically, this guy who has surrounded himself with this military guy who also fought in the UFC ends up being like not telling the truth there. So there's just a lot of just inconsistencies. Now, I can say this. I'm not perfect, and neither are you. None of us are perfect. But if anybody, calls us on the carpet for something, you can say, look, I made a mistake, or whatever it is. Like, it was a long time ago, or I had to do it because my life was on the line. Okay, I can understand that, but if you're just embellishing your record, that's questionable. But again,
It was the guy Green Beret.
he was a Green Beret. That wasn't the question. It was the question of there were a lot of questions in his book that turned out to be like incorrect. Like every chapter had something wrong, and I've seen these military guys like interview people who knew him at these times. They're like, that's not how it went down. Like if you go, he would. There's like something like that said like we went into this like village and we killed all of the women and children there. We just had to do what we had to do. And people were like, so you're basically like talking about like writing in your book about war crimes, like you can be court-martialed for that. And the people who were there were like, it did not go like that. I don't know why he would like say that he committed war crimes. That's just not how it happened. And then the big one was he was like, they said that he had special medal that he did not have. And so the United States government investigating him for it. Now, you know, has everybody ever like basically I don't want to say made up things, but like inflated themselves? I don't think anybody's perfect, but this is just one of those things where he doesn't really acknowledge it. And so the guys who Brendan Schaub surrounds himself with are like this guy who is hated in the military. The military hates this guy. There are podcasts about how bad this guy is. And then it's a rapist and a child molester or whatever. It's like, and that's why we say whatever this guy touches. Exactly. And that's why the thing is whenever anybody leaves this guy, they become very successful. Theo Vaughn's career skyrocketed after he left this guy. He started interviewing Donald Trump and JD Vance and like all these really important movers and shakers. When his producer left, he was in Super Bowl commercials and he was on Saturday Night Live and he was in like a bunch of commercials recently. He's on commercials for all kinds of shit. And then like his other assistant, like she became like a OnlyFans model, like a clothed OnlyFans model, and makes like hundreds of $1,000s a month. Like anybody who leaves this guy does really well, and anyone who aligns themselves with him, like Brian Callen, gets taken down. Like anyway. And when you're like you're obsessed with this guy, again, it may seem like an obsession. The guys of the podcast that I watch, those are the guys who are really obsessed. But I'm like in it like Shane Gillis is in it. It's hilarious to watch the dumpster fire.
These are the people who are put to death. Remember, the other word for hereg is saif. But again, classically it's called hereg.
All right, with that, Riser, I've got shit to do. I've been saying this for 5 hours.
Number one, someone who murders someone else.
Go watch that compilation that I sent you, and then come back when you're done.
The city is put to death. It's killed by saif. Or a murderer.
All right. Yeah, go watch that compilation I sent you. No, it's way more than that. It's way more than that. I give you about 3 hours worth of work.
He holds his friend's head under the water.
Right.
So you go do that. You get your 15 hours of sleep. Yeah, and you get your 15 hours of sleep, and then come back when you're all refreshed. All right. Take care, big dog. Peace.
Thank you for the lecture on the Brendan.
There will be very intense tests. That absolutely fascinating. 100%. Peace, big dog.
In general, right? Rabbi Nachman writes that when one commits an avera, every avera always has like a twofold component to it. On one hand, there's the avera, but there's also the lost opportunity for a mitzvah. Like in the moment that I could have been doing the avera, I could have been doing something positive at that very same moment. So there's like this duality of loss in the commission of an avera. is true for personally as well. Right? For every person that I harm and for every enemy, there could have been a friend. There could have been a friend. So it's interesting to see that the Torah Dafka first see here Reuven's killing Shimon. He's holding his head under the water, and the Torah calls him Re'ehu. Re'ehu. It didn't have to be this way. So there's that duality. There's that abuse, that terrible mistreatment, but there's also the loss of perhaps what could have been a friendship. Okay, anyway, so calls him into the fire. Now listen, now we're going to see all of this. And Shimon is unable to take his head out of the water, or he's unable to get out of the fire, and therefore he dies. Chayev, ultimately again, Reuben is going to be chayev for this. That's an act of bloodshed. Another case. What happens if Reuben pushes Shimon into the water, or pushes Shimon into the fire, and ultimately again, Shimon could have gotten up. He could have gotten up, but he didn't. Umeis, and he dies. Pater. In those cases, Reuben had Pater. So I said this is quite fascinating. Even though Reuben pushed Shimon into the water, and even though Reuben pushed Shimon into the fire, since Shimon could have gotten up but failed to do so, Reuben is not liable. If again Reuben goes ahead and incites a dog to go ahead and bite Shimon, he incites him to bite Shimon. Or she's about to kill us as a nachash. Potter, ultimately is Potter. Why? Because we'll say this is going to be a case of grama. This is causation. Because in these cases over here, Reuben is creating a force, but he's not the direct damager. It's the dog that is damaging. It is the snake that is damaging. Even though again, Reuben riled it up. Here's shikfas and nachash. What happens if Reuben took the snake? Right? Literally held the snake's mouth open and put the snake's fangs into Shimon. And what's interestingly enough, it's the venom that kills Shimon, not Reuben. What's the halacha over here? So the Gemara says, Yehuda says, no, in that case, that's direct koach, and therefore Reuben is going to be chayiv. The Chachamim poacher, and the Chachamim on the other hand say that Reuben is going to be potter. I just want to say a lot to talk about in this sugya. Let's see the Gemara. Amar Shmuel, if name Milo Ne'emra Yad the Barzal. So this is very interesting. That we get Rashi, first Rashi in the Gemara, last short line in Rashi. Lo Ne'emra Yad, Kimash Ne'emra Be'even Yad or Bekli Eitz Yad. So we'll say in the sugyas where it talks about killing someone, the lashon of the pasuk is if Reuben kills Shimon be'even yad, even yad. Now, what that means is literally it can mean a stone that he's holding in his hand. But what we really mean to understand is that a yad means that you have the ability to kill someone with that evan. In other words, the halachas we're going to see that in order to be liable for going ahead and killing someone, halacha l'maisa, the item that you kill the person with has to be capable of delivering a death blow. If it's not capable of delivering a death blow, in other words, if I go ahead and I take a pebble, Reuben takes a pebble, just a little pebble, he throws it at Shimon. And somehow, and again, under normal circumstances, what would have happened if you threw a pebble at someone? Whatever, they'd get a ding, But it happened to be that it hit Shimon in a way, and however it hit him, and he dies. Reuben's not going to be chayav for that because what he did not really have the capacity and the ability to cause death. So that's why I told you use lashon of yad by Evan and by Eitz. So the Gemara says, why doesn't it use the same lashon of yad by Barzal? Very interesting. Shabarzal means because ultimately again Barzal is different. Barzal is different. That when it comes to wood. So ultimately, again, when it comes to iron has the unique ability to go ahead and kill. As even in a very small shear. So the Gemara says, so Rabbi says, so it was known before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that iron has the ability to kill in even the smallest amount. Therefore, the Torah didn't give a shear. What's unique about iron? So Rashi points out over here, Shabbat is the third white line from the bottom. That because iron could stab, therefore even the smallest amount of iron has the ability to cause death. Therefore, the Torah doesn't use the lashon of yad. Yad means that normally the item you use to kill someone has to have a shear in order to generate liability. When it comes to iron, because iron is so dangerous, even with the shear, ultimately again there's going to be liability. The Hanimili, the Barzini was, but this is all assuming that what? This is all assuming that halacha one went ahead and pierced an organ that would be fatal. Okay, the Kavash Havasakhamai. Listen to this. Remember, the Mishnah said if Reuben goes and holds Shimon under the water, there's liability for that. So the Gemara says like this: The Gemara says, "Reisha Abu Sakamash Malon, the Sefer Abu Sakamash Malon." Both the Reish and the Sefer, the beginning and the end of the Brisa, both teach us tremendous lessons. What are the lessons? Here we go. So the Reish Abu Sakamash Malon. In the first case, the Mishnah teaches us a chiddush. Afagav telav iudachol kevan de'inachol lalos misham umeis chayiv. So we'll say in case number one of the Mishnah, what's case number one? Case number one is where Reuben holds Shimon's head under the water. And again, Shimon dies, Reuben is chayiv. What's the chiddush there? The chiddush there is, how did Shimon get into the water? I don't know, but Reuben didn't put him there, or Reuben didn't necessarily put him there, right? So in other words, the chiddush in the Reisha is, even though Shimon's already in the water, Reuben didn't put him there, but if Reuben comes up, right? Reuben didn't push him in the water. Shimon was in the water. Reuben comes along and holds Shimon's head under the water. There's liability for that, even though Reuben did not place him there. Sefer Abu Sakamash Malon. What's the chiddush of the Sefer? Afagav the dachval kiven the yachalalos misham umeis pater. The chiddush of the Sefer is, remember what's happening in the Sefer. Reuben pushed Shimon into the water. But now again, and let's say Shimon dies. Shimon had the ability to get himself out of the water and didn't do so, even though he was only in the water because Reuben pushed him there. Reuben will not be liable. Incredible. Kavash Minalan. They'll say, how do we know that there's liability for holding someone's head under the water or for holding someone in the fire? In other words, that here, I didn't create these circumstances, right? Shimon may already be in the water, or really, Shimon may already even be in the fire. How do I know that if Reuben holds his head under the water, or holds him in the fire, that Reuben is liable? It's very interesting. Shmuel Domerkra, Pasuk says, Obe'eva. Or if Reuben treats Shimon with animosity or hatred. So Lashon of Eva, Obe'eva hiko. If he hits him with hatred or animosity. The Rabbos is Hamet Samse. So this goes ahead and includes Mitzamse. What does Mitzamse mean? Literally again, constricting. Mitzamse means holding someone in place. In this case over here, Reuben holding Shimon's head underwater. Reuben holding Shimon in the fire. There's a tremendous hospital in this as well. That's interesting. How does the Torah define animosity? What's Eva? Mitzamse. So what does Mitzamse mean? Sometimes when you constrict a person, you don't allow a person to move. You don't, I don't mean physically, well, this is not physically. But sometimes, especially in relationships, we back people into corners. And they cannot be the people they need to be, or they cannot accomplish the things they need to accomplish because someone is constricting them. There's simsum. When you constrict a person, that's evil. That's animosity. So much of life and so much of relationships is allowing people to be who they need to be without trying to make them in our own image. In relationships, there's a natural Yetzer Hara, whether it's in parenting or whether it's in marriage, to make other people in your image. Right? I need my kids to look like this, to be like this. I need my spouse to be like this. That's what relationships are about. Relationships are not about making someone else in your image. Relationships are about forming and creating beautiful synergistic partnerships so that you can accomplish more as a collective than you can accomplish as an individual. And when you're mixancing someone, when you constrict someone, the Gemara says that's Eva, that's animosity. Incredible. Hogara, story. There was a guy, so Reuben had Shimon's animal, and what did Reuben do? Reuben tied up Shimon's animal so that it couldn't move and left it in the sun. And as a result, the animal died. Heat exposure, the animal died. So what's the halacha? Ravina said that the guy was potter. I didn't call him Reuben. Said he was potter. Okay, so what's going on over here? Ravina Mechayiv. So Ravina says, of course he's chayiv. Why? Kavachomer, it's Kavachomer, it's Kavachomer. Umarot Seach Shalo Asava Shogi Kamezid, when it comes to murder or an accidental murder, it's not the same thing as an intentional one. Va'ones, Kiratzon, in extenuating circumstances is not the same thing as premeditated. Yet, right? So we know that when it comes to murder, right, even though again, accidental killing is not the same thing as intentional. Ones is not the same thing as ratzon. Yet, what's the halacha? If you keep a person in place, if Reuben keeps Shimon's head under the water, what's the halacha? What's the halacha? He's chayiv. So too again, Ravina wants to suggest that halacha l'maisa in this case over here, where Reuben tied up Shimon's animal, so Shimon's animal cannot move out of the sun and died as a result of heat exposure. Reuben is going to be chayiv. So the top of Ayin Zayin, Nezikin, Sha'asaba Shogi Kamezid, but on his Kiratzon. I will say, and I remember when it comes to Nezikin, when it comes to damages. Now, what's the halacha about damages? We'll say, interesting enough, damages, accidental damage is the same thing as intentional. Ones is the same thing as Ratzon. Why? Why is that? Why is that? What's kind of like the operating, not phrase, but the operating concept by Nezikin? Adam Muad Viola. A person is always responsible for his actions. So when it comes to damages, they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, there was an accident." Okay, I forgive you. Pay up. Right? Oh, it wasn't only extenuating circumstances. I understand. Pay up. You're always responsible for damages. That's the Venus Kavachom, which is very interesting. So when it comes to taking a life, so where there's a distinction between intentional, unintentional, ones and ratzon, yet you're chayiv for confining someone, right? If Reuben holds Shimon's head underwater, he's going to be chayiv for that. So therefore, again, if Reuben ties Shimon's animal in the sun and the animal dies, Reuben's going to be chayiv for that. Vachara says, no, that you're part of why. Why is it that ultimately Rav is potter? Why is that? Most Yumas from a Makeh Rotseach. So the pasuk says that the murderer will be put to death. Rotseach with the chayev lon mitzamsein, benezikin lo chayev lon mitzamsein. So ultimately, again, Rav Sharshia's is fascinating. Sorry, Rav Acha's idea is like this: the din of mitzamsein is one that is brought up by nezikin, by damages. I'm sorry, excuse me. The idea of mitzamsein is one that is brought up by bloodshed. It's brought up by Rotseach. Ultimately, again, the din of mitzamsein is not brought up by nezikin. Which was, I want to point out, remember, we just learned out, the Gemara just asked, how do you know that you're chayiv from mitzamsein? How do you know that you're chayiv for confining someone in a situation which results in their death? So remember again, what did the Gemara base it on? The Gemara says, Obe'eva hikol b'yado v'yamos. Remember, learn that from Obe'eva. That's talking about a case of murder. So Rav Acha will say, the concept of mitzamsein is dafka brought down in a case of murder. It's not brought down in a case of nezikin, and therefore it doesn't apply. Whereas Mosai said, this is really quite fascinating. Just to understand that this fundamental machlokes over here. So according to Rav Acha, the only time you're chayiv for damages is when you actively damage someone with your own koach. But if, let's say again in this case, where Reuben takes Shimon's animal, ties it up in the sun, and the animal can't move and the animal dies, Rav Acha is going to say, you're not chayiv for that. That's not good. It's not good. We don't. Obviously, the halacha doesn't condone it, but there's no legal recourse that Shimon has under those circumstances. So fundamental machlokes. So again, Ravina understands that the din of mitzamsein applies both by bloodshed as well as by nezikin. Rav Acha, it only applies by bloodshed, doesn't apply by nezikin. Incredible. Amar Rava, another example. I will say now, I'll tell you this as we go along. Halacha l'maisa, the Rambam Paskin is like Ravina, that mitzamsein is chayiv both by bloodshed and by nezikin. So therefore, again, if Reuben ties up Shimon's animal in the sun in a way that the animal is going to die of heat exposure and the animal dies of heat exposure, ultimately Reuben's chayiv. Now, we have a couple of other pieces we're going to have to qualify over the rest of this stuff, but just to understand, nugget number one, we paskin like, well, it's not number one, we've had a lot of nuggets so far, but nugget number whatever, right? We paskin like Ravina. That one is chayiv for mitzamsein, for confining someone or something, both by bloodshed, by rotseach, as well as by nezikin damages. Okay, let's go back to Amar Rava. Kafso umeis barav, pater. Very interesting. What happens if Reuben ties up Shimon, and Shimon dies of starvation? Whatever, 5 days later, Shimon had no food, no water. I don't know the person just Rabbi had food and water, and Shimon dies. Shimon dies. So Rabbi says that Reuben is pater. Reuben is pater. Rabbi say now why? What's like what? Which sounds very strange to us. What's the logic? Let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi's in the first short line. Kafso misparav. The bishasha kafso in kan divar hariga. V'arav ba me'ela v'holich lechazak la'achar zman kol shah v'lo dami letzamtzim b'mayim u'b'or d'hori mizuma. So let's listen to this. Essentially, right, we pass that mitzamtzim, holding someone in place and them dying as a result of being held in place is chayiv. That is only if the force which brings about death is present at the beginning of the event. So, for example, Reuben holds Shimon's head underwater, right? So Reuben is going to be chayiv. Why? Because the water, right, which is the vehicle of death, is right there and present. Right? Similarly, again, in the previous case, if you notice, right, Reuben tied Shimon's animal up in the blazing sun. The sun is there. The sun is there. But in a case where, let's say, Reuben creates only for Shimon, but there's no death force that's present in that moment, then Reuben will not be. So, for example, Reuben ties Shimon up. Shimon dies of starvation 5 days later. Okay, at the time that he but at the time that he tied him up, again, there was no starvation. Like there was no death force. So because there was no death force, therefore there is no technical liability. Obviously, I'm sure that Ibn Shalom is smiling upon Reuben for what he's done. We're talking about in a very technical, legalistic framework. Is there liability or not? Can Bezin execute Reuben for what he did? So also, it's a very important principle. In order to be chayiv for something, for confining someone, the death force has to be present at the time the person was confined. If the death force only comes later, there is no liability. Next, Bamarava, another example. Bamarava, Kafsa Bechama Umeis. Let's see Umeis chayiv. If Reuben tied Shimon up, and he tied him up in the blazing sun, right? Or he tied him up in the freezing cold. Ultimately, again, Reuben and then Shimon dies. Ultimately, again, so Reuben is going to be chayiv. But on the other hand, so chama lavo, so tzina lavo. Let's say Reuben ties Shimon up at night, and at night it's fine. There's no sun. When the sun comes up the next morning, by the time it gets to the day, Shimon's going to die of heat exposure. So Reuben's pater. Why? Same idea. Why? Because at the time that Reuben tied Shimon up, there was no present death force. So because of that, ultimately, again, Reuben is going to be pater. Because Sof Kamalavo, Sof Lavo, pater. Incredible. So the Gemara says, Rabbi says, Kafsa Lefnari. So this is very interesting. If Reuben tied Shimon up in front of a lion, pater. That's quite fascinating. Reuben is pater. But let's say now, why is that exactly? Take a look at Rashi. Rashi's right across. So if Nari pater, di'inami lo haya kafos, lo haya yakala hansa asal nari. Now let's say we do not pass this way. But this is fascinating. Why? Because also, clinical tests have shown that your chances of survival with a lion, whether you're bound or not bound, are non-existent. Right? Rabbi says your chances of survival are no better if you're untied with a lion than if you're tied up with a lion. So therefore, it's interesting. So Rabbi says, if Reuben puts, and listen, the ideal here is going to see this. That Lamaisha, remember again, it was a wild animal. We saw this in the Mishnah about Shisa Basakov inciting the dog. Those cases seem a lot more like Grama, like causation. Because it's not Reuben killing Shimon, but rather what is it? It's the lion killing Shimon. It's the fact that Reuben went ahead and tied Shimon up. Okay, his chances are no better having it untied. So how about my son? He's part of us happens to be. We're going to see that I'm a Haskins in a case like that. You actually chayiv. But again, we'll see it for later. Rava says because of Harry Potter, the Yitushin chayiv. This is very interesting. If Reuben ties Shimon up with Yitushin, what are Yitushin? Yitushin are gnats. So I guess it was a person dying as a result of prolonged gnat stinging. Something disease or whatever else reaction. So the nice one said, what's the ideal? Because if Reuben was untied, what could he do? Right, Josh points out he could shoo it away. The fact that he's tied up now, so the fact fact that he's tied up, that ultimately again results in his death. So as Rashi says, Rashi says no, even with gnats, he's still going to be potter. Why? Because the gnats that he dies from are not the gnats that are present at the time that he's tied up. Once again, death force is not present. How does it work with the gnats? This gnat never comes, this gnat never goes. Right? So again, who causes it? It's the collective gnat chevra that goes in and causes his death. Again,
Yiddish word
death
of
force
Polish
is not
province.
present at the time that
Providence
he
has
is
taken
tied up. Incredible. So let's say, so again,
meetings
nugget
in
of
various
information over
areas of
saying
Jewish life,
before.
regular
In order to be chayiv from the sun to self established, number one, you're chayiv from the sun saying both by Nisikim as well by Nisa, by Roseh, as well as by Nisikim. Nugget number two, you're only chayiv from the sun saying if the death force is present at the time that you are tied up to the individual. Incredible.
She feels taken advantage of. She might say to others.
Says the Gemara. Says
If she
the Gemara.
feels taken advantage of, she might say that others are treating her like a child. People
If I say
realize when a person's
right,
clothes are not quite as fresh and nice as they
barrel
were,
over
it'd
shit.
be accurate to say
Right,
that they are
not
just
put over the
on
barrel, right? But he went
Of
ahead
course,
and he
you'd
put
have to
the
be careful
barrel
about
over
saying
shit.
that, since speaking
Rashi says over
disparagingly
here at
of
your
others
cross to the
constitutes
right.
loss and harm
Kafala
forbidden people
Tigis,
talk.
Umeis
Thanks to
Ahafa.
riches, when
No,
Eastern European
again,
Jews began
apparently the
streaming
issue was going ahead
to
and
the North
putting barrel
America,
over someone is they suffocate.
when Eastern
Over
European
time, they will
Jews began
suffocate.
streaming to North America at the turn of the
So the
19th
Gemara says,
century,
Kafala
many
Tigis,
many of them entered the garment industry. They were famous
and what does Reuben
industrialists,
do?
ambitious sweatshop
Reuben goes
bosses,
ahead and
humble
opens up a piece of the ceiling so that
cutters and
frigid
pressers,
cold
as
air
well as
comes in
wholesalers
while
and
Shimon
retailers
is
in every
sleeping,
corner
and
of the
ultimately
Shmata
kills him.
business.
Rashi says
As
over here,
the entire industry came to be known. In all areas of life, Torah has instructions for Shmata
he
traders.
opens up the
Don't mix
ceiling,
warm
and
linen
cold air
wearing
comes in.
two
So
together.
that's
It's biblical.
ultimately, again,
Prohibition knows
Rabbi
is
Zera
a
Chad, I'm a
biblical
chayiv,
prohibition on the
Shul
shabbos.
Machlokas. Rabbi
Everyone
Zera,
deserves to
one
rest on
says
Shabbat
chayiv,
for a
one
dry
says
goods
potter.
dealer.
What's going on here?
There,
This time the Rabbi
for a
was
dry
on
goods
potter.
dealer,
So
this
say
is used
the
into
Pashtos,
significant hardship.
Rabbi
For dry goods dealer, this used for a dry goods dealer, this used to entail significant hardship. Saturday was easily the busiest retail day of the week. Sweatshop workers also used to find themselves blocking horns at bosses who wanted them to keep producing every day of the week. In fact, the running joke in those days was that Shabbos was a composite word,
right now, there's
a
air.
composite of the
Right now,
word
there. Or when he
shush,
opens up the
boss.
ceiling, right now, there's a, but Lamais, again, one could make the argument that
Everyone deserves to be paid fairly
is
in
not
our time
present,
and not be treated like a
well.
shmata.
Which says not
One
necessarily.
last piece
This
of
time,
lesson: the
Rabbi
Talmud
Zera,
teaches
maybe
that
not.
God
Maybe this price is
provides
actually
the
Rabbi Zera.
cure
How so?
even before the illness.
How
Thus,
so?
even before your clothing becomes a shmata, you can remedy the situation with a well-placed lot.
Why? Rabbi Zera.
Fetch.
Listen to this. Hi, man,
Okay.
the idea that Chavrei the base of the shisha. If someone
That's a
takes
cool
his
story,
friend,
Rabbi.
right? Ruben takes his friend into a house made of marble. Now, we'll say now again, the Chav over here in Manchester, base of the shisha. Shesasam biyosef ve'im hevel ha'or v'haner yakolot says a house that is made of marble could be made airtight. So Ruben puts Shimon in an airtight home. The adlik shraga umes. And then he goes ahead and he lights a candle, right? And Shimon dies. And Shimon dies. What's the halacha? Chayiv. Who's in the chayiv? This is fascinating. Now, why is that? Why is he in chayiv? By lighting the candle, what does Reuven do? What is Reuven doing? He's taking up all the oxygen, right? So he's taking up all. So because he's taking up all the oxygen, therefore he is responsible for the death of Shimon. Now, the Gemara says, "Remember the adlik shraga." Now, the only reason he's chayiv is because he actively lit the candle. But the purpose is, had he not lit the candle, but he just put Shimon in an airtight home, and I say would not be chayiv, right? Why? Because the death force wasn't present at the time that he confined him. To which the Gemara says, "Come the adlik shraga." The reason I'm looking at chayiv is because of the candle. How lo adlik shraga lo? If he would not have lit the candle, he would not be chayiv. It could have been a vice versa to Rabbi Zera, to which the Gemara says not necessarily. Amri, Shasam, no, sorry, lo Amri. Gemara says it's not necessarily chayiv. I'll tell you why. son. In the case ultimately, again, in the case over here, the low struggle of still have in the case of the airtight hole, the issue of Rabbi is apparently the kindling of the candle goes ahead and somehow also taints the air. So apparently the actual act of going ahead and lighting the candle, had you not lit the candle, Shimon would have been just fine. And
Imagine
something
Rabbi
along
Finkel
the time,
anonymously
but would have
published a
been
book
fine.
called
But
Rabbi
Maskell have the Shaiti, I'm base. In the case over here,
in the second volume of Mishnah's
the barrel, I'm sorry, the bias, the low
Chassidism.
Shaganami
The
Maskell
book
have the
was republished during the
Because I say,
Oxford
interestingly
Family
enough,
Company. Since then, the book has been
interestingly enough, the Gemara
published.
says so the cases are not to be comparable. Hasam below struggle of Maskell, without the putrid air would not have started the right time, but but over here,
In
the low struggle
1950, Rabbi Frankel published the first volume of his work, the Buris
without
Aryeh,
the
a
candle,
Kabbalistic
without the
work
candle,
on
the
the
putrid
Rambam
air
volumes.
begins.
Commentary on the Torah, the second volume was
Love
published in
that which we
1924.
compare.
Both volumes
Cases.
were
I wasn't
reprinted as a single book
interestingly
in
enough,
1932.
the way we
The book was
present in this
reprinted
case
again
over
in
here
1990 by
is we find
Machon
out. So
Share's
the interesting
Yeshiva
what comes out of here is
Shema
machlokas.
Kabbalah
Right, so
Yeshiva
Ruben
in
puts the barrel on
Jerusalem.
top of Shimon,
The book
or
is
right
very
towards the other
well.
case. Ruben puts the barrel on top of
In
Shimon, or
1927,
opens up the roots.
Rabbi
Right,
Frankel
and
published a
told
book
them, so what is
dedicated
the
to
halacha?
false
What is the
trifle
halacha? So it's machlokas. Now the only machlokas is ultimately who says
The book
what,
was
but it's clear
printed
that there's a
the book was
fundamental
printed in
machlokas as to whether or not
Sylvan
again there is liability in this particular case. So it's like, so this case we'll have to see exactly what happens. This case is a little bit different because on one hand,
in
the
the book,
death
Rabbi
force
Frankel
is
writes,
present,
so
but the death force is not immediate.
in the book,
So, in
Rabbi
other
Frankel
words,
writes
at a certain
that
point
the
in
large
time,
book is actually
Shimon
only the
will
first
run
part
out of air in the barrel. But right now he has enough.
manuscript.
At a certain
On the
point
subject,
in
Rabbi
time,
Frankel
perhaps
explained that he
cold
could
will kill Shimon,
not
but
publish
right
the
now
rest of the
it's not an
manuscripts
impact.
at that
So
time
we'll see this
due to
case of
financial
Hashem,
reasons.
what we do in
Furthermore,
this
he
case. This
expressed
is
his
kind of
desire
like
to publish
a
the
little bit
rest
of
of
an in between,
his
where
book
on one
in the
hand the
future,
death force
as
is
he had done
present,
previously
but
with
the
the
death
book
force is not so
entitled
present for
Buris
its
Aryeh.
entire
Rabbi
full
Frankel's
amount. So
dream
again,
never
hold on to this case,
materialized, and
we're
the
going to loop back. The
manuscripts were
Rambam,
destroyed
Lumen
during
Hashem,
the
puts
the
all of
exact
this
date
together in a beautiful
of
panoramic
publication of
halachic view
Rabbi
for us.
Frankel's
So we'll
book
just point
entitled
out how
Shavach
incredibly
Raphael,
striking this
the
lashon
commentary on the
is.
Gada.
That
Shel
Kafale
Pesach is
Gigis,
undocumented.
right? So what
However,
happens?
since
So
the
Ruben is
author
putting
in
Shimon a
his
barrel right
introduction to the
so
book
right. The lashon
refers
was
to his
Kafale
1927 book
Gigis.
entitled
Ruben
Medina
goes ahead and
Ohio,
puts a
and
barrel
since the
over
1930
Shimon.
edition
This
of Rabbi
lashon is very reminiscent.
Sheni
Very
refers to
quite
Shavach
reminiscent.
Nephew.
It's the same lashon
We
the
can
Gemara
deduce
says.
that
Shabbos
it
uses for
must be
Sinai.
we
Right?
can
The
deduce
Gemara
that it
says the
must have been
beautiful
print,
Gemara,
published
dramatic
in
Gemara.
1927-1930.
Baruch Hu
The
lifted
book
up
was
the mountain over
republished
us and
by
what?
Rabbi
Held it
Dr.
over
Ray
us
Edelstein,
like a
grandson of
barrel.
Rabbi Frankel in
What's
1994 New York
fascinating
City.
about a barrel?
In
You get
1937, only
information
3
you
years
know,
pregnant,
don't put it on
Dr.
the
Ray
inside of a
Frankel
barrel. Why not?
published his
Because
final
if
work
it's sovereign
entitled
from you, apparently
Skutai
you could
Bahara,
suffocate
a commentary on the Torah.
inside of
Really
a
great
barrel.
story, really
Inside of a
Paul
barrel.
Ryan's book.
The Rebbe Shalom, I think, was telling
Really?
us something very amazing.
You might get some
Sometimes
or
a
something.
person can feel like they're suffocating in leadership. It can happen. It can happen. The person feels overwhelmed, ultimately by the possibilities, overwhelmed by the realities that sit upon us. And sometimes the deepest of Torah can ultimately feel overwhelming. Almost as if after the Torah is validated, that emotion, we all have moments like this where I know what I have to do, or I know what I should be doing, but the reality is it feels very overwhelming to me. It feels very overwhelming, and it feels incredibly suffocating. And the emotion is saying, I get it. I get it. I understand it. Yeah, at times it can be beautiful, at times it can be inspiring, and at times it can actually be suffocating. That's the end of the life. That's the end of the life. Sometimes when someone is struggling with something, called toxic positivity. What's toxic positivity? Toxic positivity, and we all know people like this, where when you're struggling with something, you go over to them, and what do they say? What do they say to you? It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And what's your often your reaction to that person? I literally want to kill you with my own hands. Like, be quiet. Be quiet. I know it's going to be okay. I know it's going to be okay. I got it. I've been around. I know I'm actually right. I'm going to be fine. But that's not what I want from you. Don't tell me it's going to be okay. Right? I know. I understand. I got it. I got it. Sometimes what a person needs when they're going through difficult times is just some empathy. It's just some validation. That's all. Sometimes I know it's gonna be okay. I know I'll make it through. I know I'll stand strong. I'll remain standing. But just validate what it is I'm going through. That's all. Just tell me I understand. Just tell me it must be really hard. Or I'm so sorry that you're in this predicament. Or is there something that I can do to help? Don't tell me it's going to be okay. I think it was a Catholic school for years. Where do we learn this? Where do we learn? The positivity is really toxic. And sometimes the best thing to do for someone is just build empathy and just be there for them. Cover and hug your ears. I got it. This other thing, this type thing, it's big. It's big. And I got it. Sometimes it can feel like it's suffocating. That's it. No, but you can do it, right? But it'll be great. No, just know, I'm not sure alone. Just know that at the end of the day, I'm going to the prophecies. I'm the one holding the battle. It's not someone else holding the battle. I put the sparkle from holding the battle. Because I'm holding the battle, we got this together. But I certainly understand that at times, your responsibility may feel profoundly overwhelming. All right, let's go back to it. That's the Gemara. Amarella, not fall apart, trying to disengage. Not fall apart, so swim on the bar. Moving pushes Shimon into a pit. Pushes into a pit, and what happens? But there was a ladder in the pit. So remember again, just to see what's happening over here. Now, interestingly enough, remember, a pit also has a header, right? A pit, you've seen this before, it's like a commentaries, right? That a pit has some type of like noxious fumes inside of it also. So clearly, it's penetrating the pit of God. The good news is, there's a ladder. But what happens? Rabbi still go, and what happens? Now, just understand a comment of events. Reuben pushes Shimon into a pit, but the pit has a ladder. What happened? Now someone else came along. Rabbi still go. Someone else came along and removed the ladder. Okay. Afilu, who? Maybe even Reuben himself came along and took out the ladder. Potter. Ultimately, Reuben is Potter. Why is Reuben Potter? But even though the Shakye, listen, the fact over here is, as long as at the time that Reuben pushed Shimon, there was a ladder. As long as it was there at the time of the pushing, then what? And remember again, this was not an act that could have caused the death of Shimon. Just to even illustrate the most dramatic way, imagine for a moment, Reuben standing with Shimon at the edge of the pit, the ladder's there. Reuben pushes Shimon. Before Shimon hits the ground of the pit, Reuben takes out the ladder. Reuben's still not going to be tied. Why? Because everything is determined by the moment of the pushing, right? Because that was the act. And since at the moment that Reuben pushed Shimon, the ladder was present, therefore, this was not an act that could have caused bloodshed. Because again, the ladder was there. Listen, obviously, again, we're talking about the fact that Reuben will not be technically liable. Obviously, Reuben's a bad guy. He's a bad guy, right? And things catch up with bad people. Rashi says over here, Kadam is so go, Kadam if he loves to show that. But even if the Shanti Yakolalasu, Upata Artikiel, you should see the Lamas to Kuyube, the Grama Ba'almo. So I say, especially since at the time that Reuben pushed Shimon, the ladder was there, even though Reuben himself then took the ladder out before Shimon hit the ground, ultimately again Reuben is not going to be tired. Incredible. There was one Rabbi says, similar idea. Zara hates the Shishtiyago. Let's say Reuben shot an arrow at Shimon. Shimon had a shield. Upa Achar, not low, but someone that after Reuben shot the arrow, someone came and took the shield. Or even if Reuben himself took the shield, Potter, Reuben's going to be Potter. Why? Because even the Shaggy Day makes such a sticky delay. For I told there was others. Remember, everything is determined at the moment that Reuben shot the arrow. At the moment that Reuben shot the arrow, what was the Matthias? Shimon cannot be harmed by the arrow. Therefore, this act of shooting the arrow was not an act that could cause bloodshed. Because it couldn't cause bloodshed, therefore, again, Reuben's not going to be tight. Even if, as again, Reuben's lightning fast, he shoots the arrow, and somehow after he shoots the arrow, he goes and he grabs Shimon's shield. So that now the arrow kills Shimon. Reuben's going to be butter because at the time that he killed Shimon, the arrow could not have killed Shimon. Incredible. The Gemara says as follows. Another case. Another case. Good. Amrava, dark case. Let's say Reuben shot an arrow at Shimon, the Simon and the adult. But it's okay because Shimon had the remedy for an arrow. Remedy for an arrow. In other words, I guess the arrow was could have pierced him. He had a bandage, he had antiseptic, whatever he needed in order to bandage up the wound, and it would have been just fine. Okay. Upa after Chizron, after the arrow shot, someone else came along and stole his medication. After the root cause of Chizron, or Reuben himself came and stole the medication. Pater ultimately Reuben is going to be Pater. Why? Because the Shantave, Rachel is Davos Saba. Both say all the same thing. In order to be high for blood, it has to be that at the time that you, at the time of the act, the death force was present. But if at the time of the act, the death force was not present. So again, the ladder was in the pit, right? The shield was in the hands of Shimon. Shimon had the remedy for an arrow piercing, even though it was subsequently removed after he was thrown into the pit, or after he released the arrow, or after he went ahead and shot the arrow. And even if Reuben himself removed it, it's still going to be part of why? Because at the time of the act is not capable of causing the death of Shimon. Incredible. Onadashi, but I said, someone of the show. The truth is, even if, like, let's say Shimon didn't have the remedy in his hand, but the remedy was readily available in the marketplace, right? So therefore, again, even in that kind of case, it's clear that Reuben's act was not one which could have caused bloodshed. He's done with someone in Mahu. What happens if Halach at the time that Reuben shot the arrow, Shimon didn't have the medicinal remedy. But then after he shot the arrow, Shimon came upon the medicinal remedy. What's Halach? In that case, ultimately, again, Reuben is not going to be chayiv. There was an interesting because in this case over here, remember, at the time that Reuben shot the arrow, Shimon did not have the remedy. He didn't have the remedy. But since Halacha l'maisa, he did get the remedy before Reuben was brought to Din Torah. So therefore, Halacha l'maisa, Reuben will not be chayiv. Rabbi, we have to stop over for today. There's much more. Again, just throwing out all of these cases right now. Tomorrow's dot will really consolidate this into a comprehensive framework. Incredible Gemara.
During his stay in Berlin, his father-in-law encouraged him to become more of a public figure. However, Shearson described himself as an introvert and was known to have pleaded with acquaintances not to make a fuss over the fact that he was the son-in-law of Yosef Hitzchak. While in Berlin, Shearson met Joseph B. Soloveitchik, and the two formed a friendship that remained between them years later when they emigrated to America. He wrote hundreds of pages of his own original Torah discourses, and conducted a serious interchange of galactic correspondence with many of Eastern Europe's leading rabbinic figures, including Joseph Rosen. In 1933, he also met with Chaim Elazar Spear, as well as with Talmudist Shimon Shah. During this time, he kept a diary in which he would carefully document his private conversations with his father-in-law, as well as his analytic correspondence with his father, Levi Yitzchak.
For the month of
In 1933, after the Nazis took over Germany, the Spearsons left Berlin for 2 years. The Herman Document, known as the National Concerted Leadership Program, continued his religious and legal activities on behalf of his father-in-law. While in Paris, he took a 2-year course in engineering at a vocational college. During that time, Joseph Yitzchak recommended that Professor Alexander Vasilyevich Markenko consult with Shearson for various religious and mystical matters, and prominent rabbis, such as Aaron Shulman-Eichitz and Eliyahu Eliezer Dessler, turned to Shearson with their rabbinic analytic theories. On July 11, 1943, 3 days before Paris fell to the Nazis, the Spearsons left Yiddish America to Paris, where they stayed until their final escape from Europe in 1941. New York. In 1941, Shearson escaped from Europe painless from Portugal. On the evening of his departure, Shearson penned a manuscript revealing his vision for the future of world touring humanity. He and his wife, Shai Leshner, arrived in New York on July 23, 1941. Shortly after his arrival, his father-in-law invited him to return to German with the three Fox Central organizations, Marcus Ellen Church, Adventist Rehabilitative Society, and City Evangelical Investigation, Social Services, and Publishing Networks. Over the next decade, Yosef Yitzchak formulated his scholarly questions about the inquiry of his son-in-law, he became increasingly more personal and critical of Yosef Yitzchak. During the 1940s, Shearson became a naturalized U.S. citizen, seeking to contribute to the war effort. He volunteered in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, using his electrical engineering background to draw lurid diagrams for the battleship USS Missouri, 1863, and other classified military equipment. In 1942, during the 1940s, Shearson became a naturalized U.S. citizen, seeking to contribute to the war effort. He volunteered at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, using his electrical engineering background to draw lurid diagrams for the battleship USS Missouri, BB-63, and other classified military equipment. In 1942, Shearson launched a conversation with 30% pairs of yeshivas students, bringing locations across the country and disarming nations to teach Jews isolated communities about their heritage and offering. During the 1940s, Shearson became a naturalized U.S. citizen, seeking to contribute to the war effort. He volunteered at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, using his electrical engineering background to draw lurid diagrams for the battleship USS Missouri, BB-63, and other classified military equipment. In 1942, Shearson launched a conversation with 130% pairs of yeshivas students, bringing locations across the country during their summer
woman and her daughter. So now building out the framework from there, we went through this follows. Ma'u kavas lasura. Aki kavas lasura. So we should say that just as a man is prohibited to his son's wife, so he can be prohibited biblically to his wife's son's wife. So you must let know the single is limited to his daughter-in-law, he got that daughter-in-law through his son. He's limited to his daughter-in-law through her son. So you must I'm sorry, it's been so if also says no, it's limited to his daughter-in-law. Why? Because he is the wife of his son. One is highest ultimately again because a woman is the wife of his son, but not highest because she is the wife of his wife's son. Also, so you see what we're doing over here? We're just trying to kind of figure out parallel relationships. So we know that a man is prohibited to his daughter-in-law. What's the definition of a daughter-in-law? Your son's wife. So that Gemara said, okay, so why do we say the parallel relationship? Again, your wife's son's wife should also be assured to you. I want to be clear. All of these relationships are asur. The asur, Shaila is, are they asur b'Rabbanan or are they asur b'Oraisa? So your daughter-in-law through your son's wife is obviously asur b'Oraisa. So the Shaila is your wife's son's daughter, your wife's son's wife. Also asur b'Oraisa. This must be because no, as the passage of interesting, but Rabbi says, Abraham, so that was the truth is, we should go back to yesterday. Remember, again, your fundamental focus in general, how do you guys think Xer Shabbos? How do you guys think Xer Shabbos? Do we say, don't we know, which means again, about saying, remember that the first like content of the Xer Shabbos, I should say, the defining definition of the Xer Shabbos comes from the source item, or no, don't we know, but if we ask it all, we don't think the result will be fun, we focuses on the definition of the Xer Shabbos, or the second half of the Xer Shabbos, we'll see inside in just a moment. But in reality, don't we know, characteristics and qualities. Things like this. Again, I want to say for moving yourself. So remember again, the relationship with his mother comes from Eskimo. Toma the you never say that. So the problem is to see the relationships don't line up. Right? Remember again, we're trying to create a certain symmetry. And granted, it's a moral symmetry, but it's a symmetry nevertheless. Between relationships on his side versus her side. We're trying to line up a person to say, just like he can't have relations with his daughter-in-law, I.e. his son's wife. So again, on his wife's side, he also is pregnant to his wife's son's wife. The problem just is, if you see that the symmetry doesn't line up, why not? Take a look at mother for just a moment. If he has relations with his mother, it's Siva. If he has relations with her mother, it's Shilpa. Right? That's one of the sleeping that we saw yesterday. That if you can't go ahead and marry collaboration with a woman and her mother, part of the Seifa. So you see that the same truth doesn't line up. However, usually in the Seifa, all of a sudden, what? Second line, well, Zita the Seifa, Yitalos of the Stila. Furthermore, again, if this concept will remain true, it means that if women were to have relations with Ruchel's daughter, in terms of Seifa, again, that's an explicit concept, a woman and her daughter, that's Seifa, and yet, again, Halasa, according to this logic, if he was to have relations with Ruchel's son's wife, i.e. his daughter through his wife, then that's Stila. So again, just the punishments don't seem to line up. So which reminds us, it's not a problem, we have to look at that. If you think it's not such a question, why? If you don't say that Halasa is Stila, we already see that the punishments are asymmetrical. Why? Because if we're going to have relations with his daughter, it's straight off, and yet we're going to have relations with his brother-in-law, meaning his son's wife, ultimately that's Stila. So now who will Halasa, well, getting the email that Halasa, the issue just is that, at least from Ruben's perspective, what's symmetrical is the coefficient a generation above and a generation below, right? So in other words, for example, his mother and his brother-in-law from his son are symmetrical. They both get straight up. So the man who will collect the both, they know the Halasa. The difference for Ruben himself, again, I must say, remember we said yesterday that so much of what we're doing in these privileged relationships is creating continuity generations above and generations below. So when you look from Ruben's perspective, so again, when you look at the prohibition regarding his mother and his brother-in-law, i.e. his son's wife, the punishments are the same. After Shachos, Yinkin, Malak, Halasa. So again, being on her side, it should be the same thing. You should say that it's the same punishment because Ruben has relations with Ruchel's mother, or Ruchel's brother-in-law from her son, he might say. Mandavar Sripa Kamura, Mehak Kushalario. Everybody gives me the sense that Seifa Muhammad, ultimately, again, based on this question, we are not able to get to this entire thing. Okay, so let's check the first side of this. The second side of this is Mandavar. And according to again, this is all love and construct. It's all love and construct. So remember, keep our eyes on over here. Remember, we're trying to figure out over here, we're trying to make a suggestion that just as Ruben is not allowed to have relations with his daughter-in-law. In other words, Zillah was defined by his son's wife. He now wants to suggest that there should be a symmetrical prohibition to his wife's son's wife. Zillah to his wife. And the most suggestion that love is saying this is whichever way you can, it's not going to work. And this thing was not going to work. So for example, Mandama, very we know what would be the Asla. So not so again, publicly assuming that that thing is how the couple are saying. That literally again, we define characteristics like what we do in trouble, we define that we're calling definition of the trouble. So we said it's Mountain Kalasa, just as you know, right? You can put on my credit, you can't have relations with his son's wife. Aki Kalasasu, so we should say the same thing. You can't have relations with your son's wife. Maybe we take the hospital, and let let's focus on the destination of the year. Possibly we see that. Remember again, if we were to have relations with Ruchel's son's wife, that would be Sila. That would be Sila. About also the same but over here, if we have relations with his own daughter-in-law, i.e. his son's wife, that's straight up. With the Ashki for the Eva. I'd be fine with his mother, because remember again, on Ruben's side, things are symmetrical, because remember, if Ruben has relations with his mother, generation up, or has relations with his daughter-in-law, generation down, same punishment, straight up. Emerges. Remanda, Ida Hamura is going to die. So according to the Eva against that Stephen Nussler, we have the following question. Mine is rulership in Uno to Steva. Right, so when it comes to the right, so from Stephen's mother, Steva, come up with you, she will love the straight off. We inherited Ruchel's mother will be the straight off. No, Mahu Kalak the Bo, Bendita la Kalasa, Ahi Takwas Ba, Bendita la Kalasa. So we say the same way that there's a difference in the prohibition for Ruben between his brother and his daughter-in-law. So it's on the local side. There should be a distinction between daughter and daughter-in-law. According to the opinion that says that Sreifa ultimately is more common than Skila, based on this question, we can't darshan the proper halacha. Sreifa was like, interestingly enough, the Gemara does not seem to be able to prove this idea. Like, remember, that's what the Gemara wanted to do. The Gemara wanted to say that the same way that Reuben's daughter from his son, right, his son's wife, is cursed by Sreifa, so too, again, his daughter through his wife, Reuben's daughter, i.e. his son's wife, cursed by Sreifa, so he has parallel prohibition that his daughter-in-law from his wife, Rachel's son's wife, she also cursed by Sreifa. Abaye and Rava agree that that is not halacha. Abaye says it based on a pasuk. Rava says either way, the Gzir Shabbat is not going to work. Gzir Shabbat doesn't pan out. Okay, so the Gemara adds on. Once again, it doesn't mean it's not prohibited. It's still usher. It's still usher. It just means that the Gemara is suggesting that it may not be a prohibition of Sreifa. Okay, so the Gemara goes right there. The Gemara says, what's an interesting case? What happens if Reuven violates Rachel? He violates her. And then what happens? He violates her, and they have a daughter. So how do I know that halacha l'maisa, if Reuven has relations with that daughter, that's punishable by Sreifa? That's called bitome anasaso. So his daughter, as a result of woman that he violated, meaning, how do we know that such a relationship like that is punishable by Sreifa? To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Kabachomer. It's Kabachomer. What's the Kabachomer? Abbas Bito Onish Albito Lokoshikim. It's obvious. If Lamaisa, Reuven is held liable for relations with his granddaughter, Bas Bito, then what? Allah has come to tell all the more so, he is held accountable for relations with his daughter, even if that daughter ultimately against is the result of a violating her mother. So the Gemara says, so the ultimate object, you can't create if you can't create Kabachomer, you can't create Kabachomer through a, you can't create capital punishment through a Kabachomer. Capital punishment has to be understood directly. No, even Muslim Ali, no, it's not even Kabachomer, it's not this. Holds a man accountable for relations with his daughter, punishable by Sreifa. It doesn't mean make it how this woman treats his daughter, whether she treats his daughter from the beginning of marriage or whether she treats his daughter because she violated her mother. Either way, a daughter is a daughter is a daughter, and therefore there's going to be liability for her. Rabbi says, I'm going to use Kafar. Asya Hina Hina, Asya Zima Zima. Okay, Rabbi on the other hand, is using all those yet, and it's double to your Shava, Hina Hina Zima Zima. Okay, Tanya Dua de Rabbi the two Shimon Ranu, the Bika Merasasu, Kutra Hakasha Roma, Ubas Ishko. So the Gemara says, just before the outbreak of the Six Day War, shares of called for a global development agency that checks governments contrary to military needs of its potential against its enemies. Speaking to a crowd of thousands of people on May 28, 1967, only a few days before the outbreak of the war, he assured both that Israel would be victorious. He said Israel did not get there because of Muslim, quoting the verse, the God of Israel never speaks to his lovers. Within a brief community, criticism of the campaign was voiced at the Israel Convention of 1968. However, following the incident, its chancellor, a prominent Orthodox rabbi who had corresponded with us years in the past, wrote to Shearson privately, distancing himself from the convention, wondering that he had not been at the convention and citing this for anything. His earlier letters discussing public issues regarding the Tefillin campaign may have caused. Remember the concept of we were
After the
talking
anti-rape,
about,
in a public talk on August 16, 1976, Shearson quoted the urgent selflessness of the Israeli defense forces, moving thousands of miles, offering their lives in danger for the silver and supposedly saving the lives of tens of Jews. He said, their portion in the New York Times narrative reading rabbis like vilified, publicly praising courage and the idea that suggesting that God chose them as a medium through which he would send deliverance to the Jewish people. Shearson promised to vehemently against those elements of the neo-Israeli society who sought to undermine the soldiers' motivations and actions. Shearson opposed Israel returning any territory captured in the Six Day War.
a unique halacha.
Soviet jury.
So the Gemara says,
Shearson firmly encouraged the Jesuit and communist states. He said many of Israel's own politicians to stage appeals under communist regimes and terrified them with their religious and material needs. Many Jews were behind the article corresponded with Shearson, sending their letters to the American embassy a secret messenger in the dress that Shearson had been his grandfather.
demonstration on the other side. So again, the daughter that he has from violating her mother, she was straight up, she was just as straight up, really fall love is straight up. But ultimately, again, her marriage between she commits adultery is not judged as straight up. I'm not by just on the cover because it says, Aviha, Sina Havaras. She's defending her father. Sina Havaras as Aviha. So who is judged as straight up? One who defends her father. Yotze says, Aviha Mechallah. If you come to exclude one, not the girl who's profaning her father, but rather what? It's her father who's profaning her. Rabbi, Allah is in this from a husband, a sixteen years last Cohen. But it's given to Adina the last Israel. So I says, okay. In that case, you would say, the girl is being removed from the typical case of a Bas Cohen, and she's being judged in accordance to the standards of a typical Bas Israel. Haka, Adina the man Muklasla, Adina the Julia Muklasla, here in the case of Ika man of Sasa. So again, when the daughter of a woman who violated, so the nice where are you going to put her? You're going to put her in the category of a regular single woman that doesn't make any sense. As such, we'll say, for again, the Gemara read that, but I want to also, just as a man is tied straight off for violating his daughter, for having relations with